With Veterans Day just passing, one of the most important subjects right now is PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. Today, we are with Dana Aber, who has a brand new play, Baggage at the Door, and she's going to talk about this subject with us. Dana, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So, can you tell us about Baggage at the Door?
Yes, Baggage at the Door is a one-woman musical that talks about a person who's struggling to move forward out of the PTSD and anxiety cycle. And PTSD is a umbrella term that refers to people who struggle with recurring stresses that they can't quite seem to settle down and put away. And when it becomes too prevalent in their lives, they get the brand post-traumatic PTSD sufferer, PTSD survivor, right? Because anytime we sustain stresses to the body and to the psyche, it screws with you, right? It messes with you. When we're unable to put those dysregulated thoughts away, then they start to become problems, and they start becoming like noisy static in the head. Baggage at the Door's character, who is modeled after someone quite close to me, struggles with connection and moving forward into a healthier relationship pattern based on traumatic relationship patterns in her past. So it kind of traverses this one person's process to go from dysregulation to a better sense of regulation in her stress patterns.
That's really interesting because coming from a child of sexual abuse, I was diagnosed with PTSD and I was like, yeah, whatever. Okay. Um, and I always thought that that was a label for people that had been abused. Can you explain a little more about this to me? Because you're now saying it's about stressors, and in all honesty, it was like a label somebody gave me, and I went, yeah, whatever.
I totally understand that. I mean, sometimes those labels, those diagnoses don't help. Mine was, you have moderate to severe post-traumatic stress disorder. And I went, what am I supposed to do with that?
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. I absolutely understand that. But for me personally, and then as I chose this as a creator, as an artist, I decided to explore that diagnosis and pick it apart a little bit. I think sometimes, and with Veterans Day on our minds right now, we sometimes think that PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, falls to folks who have served and have seen things that stay with them and haunt them, and behaviors that they can't quite let go of during active duty. While that is absolutely the case, there are other ways that one can be traumatized, as you've just mentioned. So I have a friend who broke her leg like 3 times in a row. And every time she was like pregnant or had a young child, and she started to get weird about it. And then they finally gave her the label. You have PTSD about breaking your leg, about being afraid of anything that would cause trauma to your body that would render you incapable of taking care of your kids. So that's we were talking about it in relationship to my experience, because my PTSD stuff comes from near-death experiences. I don't
Oh,
have
and
those
there's
kinds of traumas, right? Or active duty. I have other things. So I understand what you're talking about there.
wait, you got them from having near-death life experiences?
Yes.
Really? Wait, explain that to me, because I've been there. I've done that one more
Yes.
than once.
It's kind of funny. And it's like, it's a weird club to be in. I always say it's like, the near-death experience club. Like, oh, wow. What do you mean? Like, oh, what happened to you? And then we start to compare war stories, to use the old phrase. So for me, and I'll just use it in the context of the show, but it is 95% accurate fact. 4 near-death experiences in 4 consecutive Januaries is the trauma that messes with the character in Baggage at the Door, and that's what she struggles with. And every time those near-death experiences happen, which is true, they were in the month of January. So she got funny about January, right? And so she got stung by a poisonous fish and was in a coma for a while.
Wow.
Yeah, she got this. New Yorkers always love the second one. She got hit by the A train in her own subway station.
Holy shit.
I know. Sorry, it's not funny. There's
No, no,
actually
no, I got run over by a cab and I thought that was bad. That's worse.
New Yorker survivors. I mean, that's a very niche club. And this one is very niche too for me. I survived dengue fever level 4, which is medically impossible according to Western science. And then I had an abusive partner. So the girl in the play, like I said, I
All
need
in January.
all in January.
Wow, at least mine happened in different months.
So one of the things that I wrote into the place is a coping skill that I used when I was trying to sort out like what the heck was going on in the first month of the year, right? I love Christmas time. I have a strong faith background and big family traditions. And then after these wonderful experiences in December, then I was suffering with these awful things that were happening. And then, like I said, trauma to the body, and then the body remembers, right? We have all of the science to back that up too. So I was getting really weird in January. One of the things that I chose to do was wear really sparkly jewelry, because I was working at the time and worked for very, very many years at a beloved Israeli restaurant downtown. And that's one of the things of that culture, and in other cultures of that part of the world, is the evil eye.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So the evil eye is a talisman of sorts that's meant to deflect negative energy by attracting it first. Right? It's like naming something like, I know you're coming for me, so I'm going to wear this beautiful thing that everyone looks at, and that's going to deflect negative energy. This is a very
Oh,
reductive way.
so that was your evil eye, was the sparkly jewelry.
Yes. I thought, come and get me, January. I'm right here. I'm easy to spot. I had the sparkliest jewelry on, rhinestones, like nothing precious. But I went big, door knocker earrings, like sparkly thing, very, very sparkly. I don't have any on for you this morning, which is kind of rare for me actually. But I every day of the month, and it became a thing. My friends would be traveling and they would snap a picture of something pretty in a shop and say, "Ooh, I almost bought this for you for Rhinestone January." And then it became a term and like a moment of my life. So yeah, in terms of coping skills and how we handle these weird traumas, I definitely understand people trying to wrap their brains around it and using any method possible to kind of make sense of these weird things that happen to us.
You didn't just want to sleep through the month of January?
My family wanted me to just go back home to the Midwest and like stay in my old bedroom wrapped in cotton bunting. That's the But of course, New Yorkers can't do that, could we?
How?
Right.
Like, seriously, how? Do you also write music?
I am what the business calls a words person. I have never tried my hand at composition.
Oh, so you do lyric.
Right. I'm a lyrics and a librettist person. And I'm very, very fortunate that as an actor, I have worked on a mazillion new plays and musicals. So my wealth of colleagues and artistic connections goes quite deep into what they call the emerging artist arena. Some of these incredible composers that joined me on the Baggage at the Door project are very fancy. I mean, everyone is
not just one.
Oh no, every song in the musical is written by a different composer or team. And with 10 songs in the show, I have 10 composer collaborators that joined me on the project to tell the story.
So who's working on it with you?
Oh my goodness. Really remarkable things. So I have their names written down here so that I don't forget anybody. Teresa Lutz is a New York Times Critics Pick. James Ballard also teaches at the University of Lynchburg. Christy Bauer. See, I have my coffee in hand for just these moments. Christy Bauer just won the Jonathan Larson Grant and has a world premiere coming up of a musical that she wrote being directed by Danny Mefford. Joseph Treffler is a music copyist on Broadway on a couple of things right now, New York, that just closed, and the 2023 revival of Camelot. Amy Burgess and Sarah Cooper. I mean, the list just keeps going. Rachel Dean is currently on tour with a project of her own called The Anxiety Project with David Brush. Thomas Jacobson, Mika Kaufman, who is the artistic director and co-founder of the Trans Entertainment Guild. Martha Miller, who is herself a psychotherapist and a lovely person. Alanya Bridge, who's from Australia and has many, many awards from that side of the pond. And it's just, I am so lucky that these people understood that as my first writing attempt, I wasn't going to try to do all of it myself. So these 10 people, we spoke independently and had meetings and interviews, if you will. And I said, I have this collection of poems, and I think that these are actually songs. What do you think? Would you choose one and make it a song? And then I'll deal with it later. That's what I that's what I told people. If you write the song to help me tell my story, don't worry about the way that it gets put in the show. Don't worry about what comes before or after. This is very atypical in terms of musical creation.
Very.
Right. It's much more like cabaret. But what I realized is that because my composer collaborators trusted me as an artist and then took this leap of faith, those 10 songs became like rhinestones on a string that I could reorder as I chose. And as the story developed, that's what I did. And I tried several different versions of the song order from these 10 independent songs, these almost standalone songs, right? Because they were written around and using the lyrics of the poems themselves. So there was a through line. I didn't have to worry about it. But the order of the play evolved over time as my librettist skills strengthened, let's say.
I'm looking forward to hearing this because I don't know any of these names, and I'm normally like the one that knows the up and coming songwriters.
Yeah.
It's funny because I once did a cabaret act, and first of all, I didn't think I was telling a story. And by the time I finished stringing it together, I was like, wait, this is telling the story of my life. I didn't want therapy land.
I know.
It kind of turned out that way, whether I liked it or not.
Were you happy with the result?
Yeah, won an award.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did.
Oh.
I picked the songs because they were pieces of me.
Mhm.
And I think that when things are right, they just literally click in. So yes. What would you like people to take away from your show?
That is a great question. I purposefully put myself out there to talk about my traumas and my weird stuff, right, in the context of this theater vehicle, so that other people would get the chance to talk about theirs. It's one of those things about New Yorkers in particular, but not just New Yorkers. I'm from the Midwest, very positive facing, but there's a lot of stuff that we don't end up wanting to talk about. And these things, these ugly parts of our history or bad things that happen that we don't really get a chance to process fully, they end up sometimes getting compacted and messing with us. Creating a safe space to talk about, or at least allow access to talk about, or think about even our own stuff, is the point of Baggage at the Door. I get an incredible access. I have an opportunity. I have the opportunity of the gifts to tell the story myself. I'm tough enough to do it. I have this incredible relationship at AMT Theater that offered me an opportunity to share the story on stage for a larger audience.
Nice.
And that's my goal, is to destigmatize conversations around mental health and mental health care. Because mental health is a icky word. It doesn't even taste good, when we're talking about it. So mental health, we're like, oh, do we have to? Like you said, I don't want therapy. And like, nobody does. It's so like, oh, it's an eye roll moment, especially I think for.
I tend to think, why should I pay somebody when I have friends?
Totally.
You
I
know,
totally get that.
they're not invested in me. They're invested in the money. So I don't get why I should go talk to somebody I don't know.
True.
But I also think you mentioned something about being tough to do this. I don't think it's necessarily being tough. I think it's being open enough and not afraid of what happened to you. You didn't cause it. It happened to you. You didn't cause this.
And to be honest with you, Susanna, that's exactly why I had to go to therapy, because I couldn't come to that understanding myself. I needed help. I needed help as an overachiever, as a strong woman, right? As a go-getter. I couldn't wrap my brain around the fact that somehow I didn't self-fulfilling prophecy cause these things to happen to me in January. What situation was I putting myself in? And that happens in other trauma people too. You're dating the wrong person. You should have known better. This kind of self-blame thing. That's exactly why, because my friends couldn't talk me out of that. I needed help. I needed rewiring with a professional. And I got really lucky because, like you said, sometimes if you don't get the right person, like with any relationship, if you don't
Yeah.
get the right person, it doesn't feel as good. I got so lucky with the therapist that helped me through these moments. I actually reached out to her to let her know that the show is happening, even though she's moved to a new state and has a new practice and we don't work together anymore. Because it's a, you know, it's a big deal to get the chance to step on stage and tell the story of these things that happened in a context to help other people.
Wait, I have a question. Um, would you not say, because I go through the same thing, that it's your spiritual side that's going, what did I do wrong? I sometimes kind of think it's our spiritual side that says you did something wrong because of
Mhm.
how we've been brainwashed. We've been brainwashed to think that this is how life is. I don't necessarily buy into that.
Yeah, I
I,
agree with you.
I think that no matter who you are, you blame yourself because that's what the world has told us. It's your fault. No, not always.
No, not always. I just tripped on a, you know, near an ocean rock where a venomous fish was hanging out. Just an
Exactly.
accident.
And no, in my cases, I slipped and fell at Dwayne Reed. They had a water cooler that exploded. I didn't do anything for this. Um, I got run over by the cab, and I was in a surfing accident. Well, that was kind of my fault because I didn't. Normally, we read the weather report, and I didn't do that one that day. And then I got bacterial pneumonia by touching a door, and I'm not really a doctor human, so it took me 24 hours, and by then I got sepsis. So, yeah, death 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm sure there's more. I'm like the cat with 9 lives.
God bless you. You know, like I said, it is a weird club to be a part of, isn't it?
Highly, highly.
And one of my favorite parts, and I actually purposefully do this, after Baggage at the Door runs on stage, I take off my microphone immediately and I go and I wait at the door to say goodbye to people.
Oh, that's nice. So you're giving them a closure.
I think it's important to let people, for me, right, that this is my decision as an artist and as a creator. I also come from I mean, like I said, I'm from the Midwest. I grew up in a very small theater where the lobby was, that's what you did, is that the actors just came out in costume to like take pictures with mom and dad and the neighbors. And it was very, very standard and normal to see the actor immediately after bows. I just felt that that was important after talking about and letting the audiences go on the healing journey with the girl as she fights for understanding and rationalization and try to become, as the line says, stable in her mess. She's not perfect. She's not fixed. That
Right?
wasn't the point.
Yes.
Just stable in her mess is the one of the closing lines of the play. I wanted people to see that I can do that still, right? I do stand in the middle and with my sweaty hair and my blurred makeup from the show and say thank you and goodbye, and then be present in case anybody just like this wants to say, oh my gosh, that happened to me too. And it's not January. One woman came up to me and said, my son, it's Halloween. And I said, oh no, how's he doing? Because, you know, that was just recently.
Yeah,
And
really.
I know. And she goes, this year he did really great. And I was like, way to go. It is just a part of the human experience and part of
Wait,
the
it's on
purpose.
one day that it happens to him? Oh my God.
Yes.
That's even more specific.
So niche, right? And I said, oh, and people want to talk to you when they know that you have some of this common ground. They do want to talk to me after the show and tell me their stuff or their family stuff. And so I put
Maggie will
myself.
tell you, and my
Mm.
friends will tell you, they're like, oh, why do you have to say that? Like, why not?
Right. And
It's
because
hard
that
for
is
me.
the goal, I put myself in the position to listen on
Right.
purpose. Even my husband will sometimes, whatever, he'll direct me. If he's in the house that night, he'll say, I'm pretty sure she wants to talk to you or something. It is part of the mission of the show.
Oh, that's amazing though, because when we do interviews here, we try to make them very personable. Like if there's flaws or flubs or anything, no, we normally keep them. I want to keep them in because I'm trying to demystify theater, you know. People put theater on a pedestal, but it's real, you know, and I tried to demystify that for them.
That's
So
cool. Yeah, I mean, it's
tell
humans
us,
telling stories, right?
yeah, exactly. Tell us where Baggage of the Door is playing and when.
Yes, Baggage at the Door is at the AMT Theater, which is a
Is where?
beautiful, gut renovated theater that used to be known as the Davenport Theater. Okay, so the AMT company took it over during the pandemic, made it beautiful, and it's on 45th Street between 8th and 9th Avenue. You might have heard of Schmackery's Cookies. It's right next door.
Which means after the trauma, they can go eat the cookie.
Right? I know. That's where you'll see the actor grabbing a cup of coffee before the show about 6 o'clock every day.
And when does it play?
We get our closing weekend coming up. So we get 4 more at bats for this production run at AMT
Wow.
Theater this coming week. Wednesday matinee, Tuesday at 7 p.m., Wednesday matinee at 3 and 7 p.m., and then Thursday night at 7 p.m.
We look forward to seeing this. Everybody, you now know, if you want to learn about PTSD, if you want to learn about how to cope and how to get through things, go see Baggage at the Door. You've got 1 week. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Lisa.
you, Dana. Thank you for being with us.